Hello and welcome to SandVFX. Today in this tutorial I'll show you how to create a realistic interior in 3ds Max and Corona. You can see our final output right here in my screen. This is going to be the first part where we'll look at lighting our scene, and in the next part we'll look at how to create materials, and finally we'll look at how to render this scene. This is focused more towards beginners, so I will try and keep everything as simple as possible, so that anyone, even without a prior knowledge of Corona renderer, should be able to follow. Alright, let's dive into 3ds Max. I've got this model right here already and set up. I will provide you guys with the model of the space, but I won't be able to provide you all these assets because those are purchased assets and I'm not allowed to distribute them. So if I turn these off, so I can provide you with the basic architectural model, which will be in the description below. The assets, I'll suggest you guys to find your own, or if you know how to model it yourself, or there's going to be so many websites where you can buy 3D models, really high quality 3D models for a really low price. I'll try and keep some links on the description below. Okay, let's go ahead and change our render settings. Change our renderer to Corona, which we already have. Now we'll go ahead and create our camera. Let's go to the camera tab and create a physical camera. Now Corona also has its own Corona camera, but I prefer physical camera because it's also compatible with other renderers like V-Ray, Redshift. So I like to use physical camera. Let's go ahead and create the camera. You can hit C on your keyboard to go to camera view. If you want to see the save frame, you can just hit Shift F. Let's go to our render settings once again, and this time we're going to change our image aspect ratio and make our image a little bit taller. Okay. Now let's adjust our camera a little bit so that we get a little bit of these assets in the foreground as well. Just going to push it back a little. Let's click go to modifier tab, and we already have the targeted option. So I'm just going to select the camera target, as you can see there, and I'll lift that up a little bit. Okay, so the goal here is we're trying to keep this floor space to 1/3 of the total scene, which seems to be pretty close. Let's adjust it a little bit. I'll pull my camera back a little bit just so we get this plant in the foreground as well. Maybe lift it a little. Let's change the focal length as well. I don't think we need, actually I'm going to increase the focal length to about, let's see, at 50. Push it back again. Now I'm going to turn off the targeted and just move the camera. So the difference is if you have targeted on and if you move the camera, it'll rotate, which is not what I want. That's why I turned off the targeted and I'm just panning the camera. Okay, push back a little. All right, I think we're pretty close. All right, now we didn't really see the plant, so what I'm gonna do is just move the plant forward a little bit and then push it back. Okay, let's rotate it a little. I just want it popping up just a little bit on the bottom here. So I'll probably just cheat a little bit and just push it down. Something like that works pretty fine. I'll adjust these tables a little bit along with this rug. Push back, something like that. Okay, I think that's pretty good for now. I could actually go ahead and make our camera a bit wider so we see a little bit outside as well. Let's actually do that. Let's go to the camera, and I will reduce the focal length, maybe 45. Actually, we'll probably end up getting back to our 40. Now the thing with focal length is the wider you go, the more distortion you're going to get with the objects that are closer to the camera. So if I reduce the focal length, you can see how much distortions we're getting on these plants and this table here. The higher the number, the less the distortion, basically. So I always try to keep it a little bit higher for a close-up or a vignette shot like this. But if you are doing a whole room, a wide room, you will need a wide angle, otherwise you won't be able to see everything. Let's go and maybe push the camera back a little bit further. Just trying to get this plant in the view. Yeah, something like that works pretty well. All right, let's push our plant back a little bit again. So this is basically trial and error. When you're setting up cameras, sometimes I spend like hours setting up multiple cameras, trying to get the right setup. And because I've already done this scene before, it's easier for me. I know exactly where to put it, so it's quicker. Otherwise, for you guys, I would say if you're doing your own scene, just play with the camera a bit, trying to get the composition right, frame your objects properly. Just spend a little more time setting up the camera. All right. Now I can see, if you look at this ceiling line here, our camera is a little bit tilted, which I definitely don't want. Now the easiest way to fix it, I'll just isolate my camera, click on targeted again. Now as you can see, the targeted is a little bit off the center. So what I can do, select the targeted, go to the align tool and click on your camera. Now we don't want it to move on any other direction other than the Y position, okay, which is what this side here, and just pivot center and hit apply. Now that should straighten up our camera. Now there's a little bit of that ceiling which I don't really want to see. You either want to see more of it, or you don't want to see it. You don't want that little bit of ceiling picking up, because that's really not useful. So I'll just push the camera a little bit, just until or maybe raise it up a little, something like that. Okay. All right, that looks good. We're done with our first step. Now I'll go ahead and start lighting the scene. Now, because this is a daytime shot, we can just use Corona, sun, and sky. So let's go ahead, go onto the top view. I go to this create tab, lights, select Corona and Corona sun. Okay, I'll just raise the sun up a bit. Now, if you don't know how I'm flicking through these viewports, that's Alt W, which is, I suppose it's the default one. I'm pretty sure I haven't changed that. Okay, I've set that to roughly the height that I want, to the angle I want. Now it's time to start doing our test renders. Let's go to our render setup. Make sure your camera view is selected, and we're going to lock this viewport. Let's go into the scene and hit start interactive. Now it will take a couple of minutes, but then it will stop. It'll pop up. All right, there it is. Now our scene is too dark at the moment because by default we don't have sky, we only have the sun. So the way to create sky, there's multiple different ways you can do it. The easiest way would be is to select your sun, go to the modify tab and add Corona sky environment. That should add the environment in environment slot right here. Now if you want to adjust your sky, you can just drag and drop that into your material editor. If you just drag that up and as an instance, now you can adjust your sky, but I'll just leave that at default for now. Okay, now the scene is too dark, and as you can see, the exposure slider on our VFB is grayed out. That is because Max, once we create the physical camera, what Max does is it goes ahead and assigns this physical camera exposure control into our exposure control. So we want to take that and set it to no exposure control so that we can adjust our exposure from the frame buffer here. Okay, now if we start the interactive rendering again, now as you can see, it's no longer grayed out. Now I can just reduce that down until I like it. Okay, so if I'm just looking at these shadows areas here, just to get enough brightness there, and I think something like that is good. But now all of these bright spots are too bright for me. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to increase the highlight compress. What it will do is it will clamp the highlights, and it'll reduce the brightness on those highlights, as you can see that. Now you don't want to go too much on this because sometimes it'll clamp the highlight and make your image look flat. So you want to make sure you're just doing the right amount. I'll just do 5. I think that will work pretty well for me. Okay, we do have a basic sun. Let's go ahead and tweak our sun a little bit. Now, the lower the sun, the more light it's going to get in, but it will also make our light more warm. So if I go really low, as you can see now, our lighting is really warm. The higher you go, the ray of light is going to be shorter and your render is going to be cooler. So I want something right in the middle, basically. Not too much. So yeah, the lighting is another thing that I play around a lot, because a good lighting can really change how your image looks, how the mood of the image looks. So you want to make sure you spend a fair bit of time trying to tweak it and get it looking really nice. It also helps if you have a good reference image for your lighting. Now I've already created this in before, and I already had a reference image I was following, so I can just go ahead and do it out of my head right now for the sake of the tutorial. But for you guys, I would highly recommend find a reference image that you like and try to follow the lighting on that. Okay, I'll just go on a little bit more of an angle. So I'm trying to focus on this armchair here. Get the lighting on that armchair. Reduce it down a little bit. Okay, maybe something like that. Maybe too much of an angle. I will bring it back a little bit. Okay, I think that's good for now. Right, now that we have done a basic light, the next thing is to add some dapple. So if there are trees outside, then we will see the shadows from the trees, which looks very interesting on renders. So if you look at this image here, as you can see, all these things, these are dapple from the trees. So we're going to simulate that. Now, if you have a 3D model, you could just put a 3D model of a tree outside and that will already cast a shadow. But that will just increase your poly count and could make your scene heavier if you have a lot of geometry in a scene. So instead, what we're going to do is we'll use a simple plane and we'll add a tree texture to it and use that as our shadow caster. I already have that in my scene. I'm just going to turn on my layer. Okay, let me go to the perspective view here. Okay, I've got a couple of plane. Let me isolate one. It's basically simple plane. I just added an edit poly just to adjust the size of it, and I have a UVW map which just does a simple planar mapping. And if I go into the material tab, this is a very simple Corona material. It's just got this map on the diffuse and the same map, but this time it's only using the alpha channel and plugged into the opacity color. That way we get all the areas other than the main tree cut out. Now, if you ask me where I got this map, I will link you guys to the website below. These are very cheap, like $1 each. You can easily purchase it from their website. Or if you don't want to purchase, I'm not sure, but there should be some website that provide these kind of maps for free. Okay. Now that I have those, what I did is I copied around few of these. Okay, there are 3 of them. So these are basically, I placed it around. Go ahead, do an interactive render, see how it looks, and keep adjusting it. Now for this one, it's covering up almost all our lights. So I'll go onto the top view. Actually, I will just delete 2 of these. So let's just start with 1. I just have 1. Now, I don't want all the lights to be covered, but I want some nice, interesting pattern in there. Okay, I think I want my sunlight to be more around this side as well. So let me bring this more. Okay. Maybe a little more. Okay. Right. Now, as you can see, our light is being cut off right here. That is, but the thing is, this curtain here, once we apply a material to it, there's going to be some light that is going to pass through it, and it's going to add some more light around here. Okay, so just keeping that in mind once we get into the material section. I really like this dapple here. Now I want a little more around this side. So let me copy my plane, and let's just rotate that and just keep playing. Okay. Yeah, I think that's looking pretty nice. Sorry. Now, one thing I've done here, I think, yes. So I have this another plane here, which doesn't have a tree or anything. It just has a normal Corona material. If I hide this one, you see there are some lights in the foreground as well. Now, the reason I added that is to hide this foreground light. The reason being is if I have a really bright foreground, and that could distract the viewer and not let them see the armchair, which is our focus here. So you want to make sure you keep your foreground darker so your viewers get pulled inside. Okay, that is why I try to just cast some shadow to make this foreground a little bit darker. Now at the moment the image looks a little bit underexposed, but that's okay. Once we start adding material, we'll tweak these exposure settings and tweak our lighting a little bit. Now I think I'm pretty good with the external lights. Now let's go ahead and create some internal lights. We've got these nice pendant lights here, so we'll just go ahead and add some light to it. I'm going to create a quick transparent material here. Just go ahead and drag a Corona material, and I will increase the refraction amount to 1, and also increase the reflection amount. It's just a simple glass material. Let me go ahead and isolate my lamps. Select all 3 of them, and now at the moment they are group. I will just open the group. I just want to select these spheres, and let me pause my render first. Okay, and I'll just assign this material to that. Now we will definitely tweak that material later, but because we want to see the light passing through it, we're just making it transparent for now. let's go on to the top view, and I will create a corona light, and we'll change the shape to sphere. We'll just create a nice little light here, position them in place, copy it around, just keep it as an instance so that when we adjust one light, all of them will be affected. Then one more instance, put it in place. All good. Okay. Now let's go ahead and do another quick test render. Start interactive. As you can see, now we've got lights. Now I want to adjust those lights. Let's select that. Maybe the intensity, I'll bump it up to 100 so that we get a little bit of that light in the wall. We definitely don't want this light to be brighter and start casting more light into the scene, because this is daytime and artificial lights don't really have too much effect during the daytime, so I'll try and keep it as minimum. I'll change the color to Kelvin temperature, and I'll make it a little bit warmer. So I'll lower the temperature. The lower the temperature, the warmer the lights. Basically, if I set it to 3000, it'll be orange, and if I set it to like 8000, it'll be blue, or it'll be cooler. If I increase that, as you can see, it's getting bluer and bluer. So I'm going to set it something around 5000 or maybe 4500. All right, that looks okay. Now I don't want these lights to render by itself, so I'll just go ahead and turn off the visible directly and visible and refraction. That way we don't see that bright spot of light. All right, now before I wrap up the lighting section, I want to show you one other trick, which is the light mix. And this is a really powerful tool in Corona. I'll show you how to set it up, and then I'll show you how it works, so that way you'll understand it easier rather than me trying to explain it beforehand. Okay, let's go to the render tab. Now the easiest way to set up your light mix is just hit setup light mix here, and with instant lights generate. Now what this does is it'll create a bunch of render elements, including the interactive light mix and bunch of light select elements. Now if we go ahead and start the interactive render again, now you can see we've got a bunch of these layers in light mix. Now what light mix is, it's basically like compositing. So you can, without having to re-render your scene, you can just adjust the intensity, color, and the visibility of your lights. Okay, let it render for a little bit. All right, I'll stop it right there. Now I can go ahead and turn off my individual lights. Okay, I can turn on just my sun. I can turn on my pendant light or my environment light. Now I can also adjust the intensity of the light or the color of the light if I want it to be more warmer or cooler. That's really cool. Okay, so the goal here is you set up your light mix, you do a quick render, and then you tweak your lights until you like it. So if you want to increase the intensity of the sun, you can set it to maybe 2, increase maybe 3, or maybe just 2. The environment seems fine. Let's see. Yeah, I think 1.5 is good. And if you want to change the color as well, we can change the color. But the thing is, if you do this, your light passes are still going to be darker. For an example, in the light mix, if I increase my pendant light to be like, let's say 50, right? Now if I go to that specific light select element, still dark, that means your beauty is still going to be dark. These will only affect the light mix. So when you save out all your render passes and you're trying to do compositing, you will have these interactive light mix pass that is, you probably set it up perfectly and looks great, but your individual light elements, beauty pass, refraction pass, they will be different. So what you want to do is at the end, you want to bake it into your scene. So let's say if I have it at 2, you could go ahead and click this button that will bake it into the scene, but sometimes it creates unexpected results. So I like to do it manually. So how I do it is, so I've set this light to 2. By default, it is 1. So I'm going to multiply my light by times 2. So if it's at 100, I'll set it at 200 and then set this back to default. Same thing, we go and do it with our Corona sun. Let's select the sun. We have set it at 2. The intensity is at 1. So 1 times 2 is 2. Set this back to default. We'll do the same with our sky. The sky is increased by 1.5. So 1 times 1.5 is 1.5. And I'll default that back. Now if you check the beauty, it is darker at the moment. If I do a render again, now this should be brighter. Now all your passes will have same intensity of the light, same color of the light, same everything. All right. Now that will wrap up the lighting course. I will see you guys in the next section where we'll look at how to material this scene. All right. See you next time.